Hello kind people of YouTube and welcome back to another video. You might have noticed I've been gone for a couple days, and even if you didn't, I'm back. I might need a while to get back into all the news, so bear with me here. But today we've had a very interesting day, so let's just jump into it by looking at the markets and then at some news. As you can see, I have some articles open already. Now let me refresh CoinMarketCap real quick. We saw the markets just crash in an absolutely devastating manner yesterday. In a way that we haven't seen in a while. The total market cap has now fallen to 180 billion, slightly more than that. That is just about where we saw it a couple of months ago when it was the lowest value of the year, with Bitcoin at $5,500 and at a market cap of under 100 billion, so a lot of downward movement here. Now, if you know my channel, you know my stance here is that we shouldn't be too discouraged from these short-time events. And that in the long term, any of these crashes will actually just make the markets stronger because they give us more time to develop and they make all the dumb money, all the speculators leave. So I'm not too scared here, but in the short term it is not looking very nice. But there is one really interesting thing that happened among all this, and that is if you take a look here at the number 2. Well, is that XRP there? Yes, the flippening has happened. Now, this is not the first time we have seen that this year. The last couple of weeks we have seen it multiple times. Their difference is only about 110 million US dollars right now, so any small movement in either XRP or Ethereum could flip them back right now. Let's see how long this lasts. A couple months ago I predicted that we would see this happen continuously at a higher and higher frequency. That more and more often we would see XRP briefly overtake Ethereum, and that would happen more frequently and for longer times at a time, longer durations at a time. This seems to be happening just as I predicted here, but who knows how many times this needs to happen until XRP permanently rips the number 2 spot from Ethereum, which I am almost certain it will at some point. Now, as for the reasons of the crash, I must admit I was traveling for the last 3 days, have not been able to quite keep on top of everything. So far, I have not heard a convincing reason for why this happened. Now, of course, we have seen a very narrow trading range, where a movement to the upside or downside is to be expected. But a downside movement of over 10%, I don't quite know what caused this, or if we've even figured out what causes it so far. With most of the arguments I've seen just pretty much have been talking about general stances towards the market. That people just expect this bear market to continue for a while, and with that as a catalyst that the prices crash down. Just have to admit at this current point I do not know. But one interesting thing to see here is that usually when the markets crash, Bitcoin falls significantly less than altcoins. But if we're looking at Bitcoin dominance at 52.9%, Bitcoin is not doing well this time at all. The Bitcoin dominance remained roughly the same as the market dropped over 10%. That means that this time Bitcoin fell just along with all the altcoins, when usually altcoins tend to fall more. In fact, if we look at the top 10 here, Bitcoin is one of the worst performers, with XRP, Bitcoin Cash and Stellar down less than 10% and Bitcoin being down 12.4%. Definitely not one of the better performers here. And usually we see Bitcoin significantly outperform altcoins whenever a crash happens. And when the prices go up, we see Bitcoin go up less than the altcoins. Then we see the altcoins outperform. This time it seems to be pretty even, and that is definitely unusual. Aside from that, not much to talk about here. Market volume is at 24 billion. That is of course to be anticipated, that when so much happens, the market volume is up. That is about twice what we regularly saw the last couple of weeks. But let's look at some news, shall we? As always, all these articles are linked in the description, so if you want to read any of these yourself, you can do it there. I might not read them out fully. But first up here, nearly 1% of the total Ether supply is locked in the MakerDAO smart contract. This I thought was pretty interesting. Let's take a look here. MKR Tools creator Mike McDonald raised a celebratory alarm on Twitter yesterday morning. According to the Ethereum blockchain, about 1 million Ether, or almost 1% of the total Ethereum supply, is presently locked in MakerDAO smart contracts. MakerDAO is the project behind DAI, a second-generation stablecoin, offering which very carefully enables the issuance of the US dollar on the Ethereum blockchain. The mechanisms can appear complex, but Maker offers a helpful for dummies explanation that does not require one to be an expert economist or Ethereum developer to grasp. author Gregory D. Prisco explains the difference between DAI and, for instance, Tether. And this is his direct quote. You're most likely familiar with stablecoins that hold US dollar in bank accounts and issue tokens on a blockchain that are backed by these dollars. I call these legally backed crypto or an IOU coin because if those bank accounts should ever be frozen or if the accountants defrauded token holders, the stablecoin now becomes an IOU on whatever's left when they eventually get the bank accounts back, if they ever regain the bank accounts. Relying on the legal system to maintain crypto tokens inserts an unreliable middleman into the blockchain. So essentially what MakerDAO does is instead of using fiat currency that is stored somewhere in a bank account as collateral, they instead use Ethereum tokens, Ether, that are tied up in smart contracts. That way, of course, you have unprecedented levels of oh my god, I'm so sorry, I can't think of the English word right now. Transparency. I was thinking of transparency. Of course, has a lot more transparency that way. Now, I'm not all that well read on MakerDAO, so I'm not gonna talk about how good or bad they are as a platform. But I thought this was interesting because with 1 million Ether, that is almost 1% of the total supply, just locked up for smart contracts in this one platform. Just think how much Ether is not actually circulating. And this applies to a lot of the major coins. A lot of that is tied up in some way. A lot of that is in smart contracts. A lot of that is locked away in wallets that people aren't going to touch in a long time. Now, why is this relevant? This is relevant because if we're thinking about a coin that, for instance, has 100 million supply. Now, usually we would use that 100 million as a basis for how we value that token. But now, just keep in mind, if a huge amount of that is tied up in other ways, if it's tied up in dApps, in smart contracts, if people have it locked behind financial products that can't be touched, if people have it in escrow accounts, as is the case for most XRP tokens, or if people just have it in like a physical wallet that they don't touch, the actual circulating supply is so much lower. And you won't notice that most of the time, but when you do notice it, is in a bull market. Because what will happen when 95% of a coin are all tied up and aren't actually on the market? And then a lot of people want to buy it. The supply is so low and the demand so high that can significantly push up prices because the actual real supply is so much lower than the theoretical supply because so much of it is tied up. We gotta keep that in mind for especially tokens that have smart contracts running on top of them, that are being used for dApps, that are being used to develop other things on top of them. That can be quite significant and we don't really see its effect until the markets shoot up, then we're gonna see its influence. But this can be a very real issue that when the markets do explode, when there's suddenly a lot more demand, that certain tokens that are so tied up and stuff that the supply is actually really small, we could see those shoot up in value significantly. And depending on how much of Ethereum is locked in smart contracts, in wallets, in escrow, in whatever they might be locked in, the real supply might be so much tinier. And I know there have been studies into this. I don't have a number available right now. But I know at least for Bitcoin there have been extensive studies about how high the actual supply really is, with people looking into how much has been lost, how much is locked up in wallets that aren't being touched. But you gotta keep this in mind for when the markets do move. Any coin where the supply is much smaller, the real supply is much smaller than the theoretical supply, those could shoot up like crazy. And I expect Ethereum to be one of the ones, or rather Ether, Ethereum is the network, Ether is the token. I expect Ether to be one of the coins that might move more than one might expect, because the actual real supply is so limited, with so much being built on top of it that so many tokens are somewhere wrapped up. Continuing on. We got some more Ripple news. We almost always have Ripple news, but these are very promising. So let's take a look at these as well from Ethereum World News. The CIMB Group, which is headquartered in Kuala Lumpur and one of the largest banks in ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, has partnered with Ripple to enhance instant cross-border payments across their markets. The partnership involves CIMB joining RippleNet that consists of over 100 global banks and financial institutions. On the other hand, CIMB Group has a wide retail network of over 1,000 branches in the region. The group operates under several entities which include CIMB Investment Bank, CIMB Bank, CIMB Islamic, CIMB Niaga, CIMB Securities International and CIMB Thai. They are one of the region's first banks to embrace blockchain technology in a bid to increase the speed and efficiency of cross-border transactions in a region where such transactions have traditionally been slow, with the World Bank estimating the value of annual remittances to Southeast Asia to exceed $120 million. Do they mean million or billion? CIMB Group's partnership with Ripple comes at an opportune time. The CIMB Banking Group's remittance product called SpeedSend is powered by Ripple technology. It allows customers to send and receive money with direct account deposits and also using the traditional cash collection at their various branches. And here you have a photo with Brad Garlinghouse and their CEO. And there's some quotes directly from them about this, but I think we got the gist here. Now, this is a RippleNet collaboration. Now, you have to keep in mind with RippleNet, we do not know if they are using the XRP token, but they could be using it. The thing is, RippleNet is pretty much their solution that has everything under its purview. With RippleNet, you can use XRapid for liquidity, but I believe you don't have to, and if you use XRapid, that means you're using the XRP token. But either way, this is huge news for Ripple, and anything that is good for Ripple as a company is by extension good for the XRP token, because it means they will have a larger base, they will have more funding, they will have more connections to develop their cryptocurrency further. So this absolutely wonderful news for Ripple, the latest in a long line of collaborations, of partnerships, and with more and more of them also using XRP. Now here we don't know if they do, but it is likely that XRP is being used on some stage there. And this, of course, a huge banking group, over 1,000 branches, and that is just their retail network. That is over 1,000 branches strong. So once again, Ripple here building a massive network around the globe, but with a pretty strong focus in Asia lately. So wonderful, wonderful to see. Continuing on. Kik selects Stellar over Ethereum for token launch. Now Kik, of course, is an incredibly popular messaging app around the world. Hundreds and millions of daily users. I believe most of them are in their teenage years, but I might be wrong about that. And they have, of course, launched the KIN token a while ago, which they're trying to build up to be a massive network of dApps, some of them integrated with their messenger, some not. So let's see why they've chosen Stellar over Ethereum here, shall we? Messenger app maker Kik is quitting Ethereum for good as it continues to develop its cryptocurrency dubbed KIN. Launched on Ethereum early in the ICO boom, Kik has now announced that it will close KIN's atomic swap with Ethereum. Without specifying a date, the KIN Ecosystem Foundation said Wednesday that it would soon release a tool for KIN holdings off of Ethereum. Kik's token has had several homes in its short life. The company raised just shy of $100 million in crypto during a September 2017 initial coin offering. By November, Ethereum scaling issues resulted in talk that KIN could find its way onto an alternative blockchain, something that Kik founder and CEO Ted Livingston later confirmed that December. By March, Kik had developed a two-chain strategy slated for Stellar, with Ethereum for security and Stellar for speed. The plan was that users could switch back and forth. Then in May, Kik determined that even Stellar's extremely low transaction fees were too much at scale, so it decided to fork Stellar so it could eliminate transaction costs entirely. Kik's Ori band recently gave a talk on the advantages to KIN with pursuing a federated consensus model. Now Kik is breaking away from Ethereum entirely, reiterating his goal to make KIN the most used cryptocurrency in the world. Livingston said in a release, "One KIN on one blockchain, that's our vision, and our strategy continues evolving as we work towards building an infrastructure that supports this." So here we see something that we've seen a lot lately. A lot of newer projects are moving away from Ethereum. A lot of them that were originally launched on Ethereum are moving over to other blockchains. Now KIN has been using a Stellar hard fork, I believe it's a hard fork, for a while now. Now they are completely moving over to that. Now keep in mind here that means they are not using the Stellar Lumens tokens, but they are not using anything to do with Ethereum now either. They are pretty much their own thing now on a blockchain that is based on Stellar, but that does not use the Stellar tokens. So at this point, they are pretty much completely unconnected from other cryptocurrencies, doing their own thing. Now KIN, in my opinion, is very promising, and right now they're still at an incredibly low price, so they might be a good investment if you're looking for an altcoin to get into at a low price. They have started releasing a lot of dApps built on top of their platform, and there's only more to come. And Kik, of course, has a massive reach because they're an established large company with a massive user base. So I think the future for Kin might be very bright. I don't ever see it becoming the most used cryptocurrency in the world, but I could absolutely see it in the top 10 in the future. And last but not least, we have some stablecoin news. Stablecoins we've talked about a lot in the last couple of weeks because there's been a lot of Tether drama, and other stablecoins have used that as a way to get a bit more attention, to get into places that they previously couldn't get into. And this is the latest with Binance adding another stablecoin. Major cryptocurrency exchange Binance announced it would list Circle's US dollar-pegged stablecoin USD Coin in a blog post November 15th, with deposits opening immediately. USDC, which the financial services company announced in May this year and released in September, is one of an increasing number of cryptocurrencies notionally tied one-to-one with a major fiat currency. Binance is not the first major platform to list USDC, Coinbase supporting the asset since the end of last month. For increased transparency, USDC has engaged a top-ranking auditing firm to release monthly balance attestations of the corresponding USDC and USD balances held issued, Binance adds in a statement today. This, of course, a not-so-subtle dig at Tether, who claim to be fully backed and who, in their white paper, said they would be regularly audited, but who haven't been able to actually prove that they hold the US dollars that they claim to be holding. All they have given us was, I believe it was last month, or it might have been early this month, they gave us a statement from their bank saying that they had a current balance that was high enough, but that is not the same as a professional audit. So all of these other coins that are being audited properly, they're pushing that front and center right now. The exchange also noted that trading for USDC BNB and USDC Bitcoin trading pairs will begin November 17th. Exchanges across the world have stepped up efforts to support fiat-backed stablecoins as more and more are issued. Cointelegraph reporting on how the currently world's largest crypto exchange OKX, as well as major competition Huobi, recently opted to list 4 US dollar stablecoins at once. Binance has not been shy about its enthusiasm for stablecoins, with the CEO Changpeng Zhao saying he hoped more would surface when the exchange added Paxos's US dollar-pegged asset in September. Regulated stablecoins serve as a middle ground where regulators maintain control, but the token also offers far more freedom than traditional fiat for users, he wrote on Twitter at the time, adding, "Hope more will copy, follow, improve, and for other fiat currencies too." So here we have it, the latest move in the stablecoin world, Binance now adding USDC, after Coinbase already added it a while ago. This absolutely seems to be becoming one of the major stablecoins, and there are a lot now in the race, all trying to get some of Tether's market share. With so much faith in Tether being gone, these seem to be succeeding more and more, though Tether, of course, at the current moment is still very much the number one. And with that, I'm gonna end this video. Thank you so much for watching, as always. If you're not subscribed to my channel already, you should subscribe. If you are already, you're awesome. In the description you will find all these links to the articles, as well as ways to support my channel if you feel so inclined, and my social media pages. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back with another video at the latest tomorrow.